G'day, and welcome back to ChunkyNadz, episode 19. The extreme-ish, mostly, one-chunk Iron Man started in Valimor. Still on Valimor. We embarked on this journey over a year and a half ago when Valimor first came out. And finally, we have rolled the Fortis Colosseum. So, let's unlock this chunk, take a look at what it means for the account, the tasks ahead, the roadblocks, backlogs, and I suppose to have a look at an eye to the future. Relatively obvious what the Colosseum revolves around, or the Colosseum chunk. It is the Colosseum itself, so we double click to unlock its goodness, and let us have a quick peek inside. Having a look around, Minimus, he is our chaperone for all things Colosseum related. Glory of Gloria fame. Bank chest, when we, I think that's the first unlock you get as you work your way through the Colosseum. And that's going to be really important eventually, because sneakily right here, and we've done a little bit of pre-work on this, but bank chest, anvil. This is really close. Like that's really close for any future smithing. So pretty cool to see. But that's pretty much the bones of the chunk, other than stepping into the Colosseum itself. Obviously, not very geared for that right now. Not very geared full stop in this chunk. But let's take a look at the chunk picker and see what we have task-wise. So, moving across to the chunk picker, and we see a lot of the Kingdom of Valimor unlocked, which feels quite nice. And now with Fortis itself unlocked, we have a bunch of new tasks. 25 to be accurate. 24 of which are directly related to the Colosseum, and the 25th is a quest completion. So let's have a whip through what is required out of these, and then have a closer look at the Colosseum itself. So from a skilling standpoint, 90 crafting to craft an Onyx amulet. So that will no doubt involve a trip back to Old Mate Charter, and back and forth, and back and forth. 60 defense to wear dragon armor. There are dragon plate legs available to us at the Colosseum. We're already above that. 90 fletching for a dragon arrow, and as we'll discover, thank goodness for willow trees. And the adamant axe that we unlocked with that smithing grind to 88. 60 prayer for Sunfire Fanatic armor. That'll be a fun journey back to Hill Giants. We've only killed about 25,000 of those so far, so why not just add a few more to that. 75 range for the Tenal Sticks of Ralos. That's the Tenal Sticks of Ralos, because we've been practicing saying it. 40 strength, which we've already got, to wield a rune warhammer. Some best in slots, essentially all the Sunfire armor. So all three of those, the helm, the cuirass, and the chaussees. Dragon plate legs to obtain, a rune kite shield to obtain. That'll be nice. That's rather iconic. And the other iconic rune drop is actually the rune plate body, but we have not completed Dragon Slayer. We're not going to complete Dragon Slayer for a long time. We cannot wear it. It's ornamental only. Designer's quiver for a completion as a ranged best in slot cape. Then we're looking at the quest. We get to complete meet and greet. We've gone so far with it, and now we just need to do the last item of that quest. Balance is all clog related and all droppable at some point in time throughout the waves of the Colosseum. You've got the pet, small heredit, the quiver itself, the Sunfire armor, the Tenal Sticks, an Echo Crystal, which pairs great with Guardian Boots, which pairs great with completing Mauritania, or accessing it, and that's not going to happen for quite a while. The last four, all the same, obtain an uncut Onyx. So 25 tasks, plenty there. and there is one task that would normally appear, but is not going to, and that is the 99 smithing task. The Colosseum, the rewards chest, does offer a rune bar, and look, in all honesty, aside from smithing being a dog shit skill and it being an atrocious task, 88 just took over 6 months, and 99 is significantly more. I think we need to take a little bit of inspiration from Crack with a K, and if it's possible to acquire these raw materials, so mine a piece of runite ore, then the drop from Colosseum won't trigger the grind. It's inspiration, but it's also self-preservation. Chunking is a test of one's sanity regardless, and 99 smithing is just ugh. And so these are our 25, and if I'm being completely honest with our current gear, it's going to be really tough to see a Colosseum completion in the future, or in the short term. I am relatively patient, as honestly the 82 farming grind over a year ago shows. I learn well, but this is rough. This is a rough one, and I think there's going to need to be some guardrails in place to not completely lose the will to play the game from the Colosseum. And so while we're here, let's touch on what the Colosseum actually is. Firstly, like our friends in Karamja, the Fight Caves, and the Inferno, this is a waves-based fight, but a lot fewer. There are 11 waves plus the final boss, and despite it seeming like a lot fewer than Jad or Zark, this is one of the hardest challenges in old school RuneScape. I know the basic mechanics. I can comfortably beat the early waves on my ult or brute force, but the higher you go, the tougher they get, and a double south spawn will screw with the best of PVMers, and it's just really difficult to brute force, particularly with the modifiers too. So I'll be upfront. I do not have a main KC, and I'm not expecting in the short term to get a ChunkyNadz KC as well. In terms of how the Colosseum operates, prior to wave start, we have a choice of difficulty modifier. They can be simple, like reducing your HP, to diabolical, multiple additional enemies. Not ideal. Upon the wave start, 3 Fremenic warriors, 1 of range, 1 of melee, and 1 of mage. Range, melee, mage, that's true. Each with about 48 to 50 HP. They spawn, they follow you, they move around columns, they run at the same speed that you do. And you've basically got to deal with those before you can jump into anything else. You always hit them with your max hit if you use what they're weak to. So you can be pretty efficient there and get some decent XP along the way, but gotta get rid of those quickly, because roughly 40 seconds in, reinforcements arrive, and those reinforcements must also be solved for, along with, I suppose, the main mobs that each level drops to. So, long story short, the Colosseum requires a lot of time, a lot of patience, and a lot of problem solving. So, we touched earlier on what we need to get out of this by way of chunk tasks, and realistically, I feel like uniques in a completion will become a backlog, or perhaps a passive task, for want of a better way. One such hurdle really is the gear that we have. We don't have a good source of air runes. 1 in 25 and change drop from bandits gives us enough to complete 1 wave. That's a lot, considering the amount of waves and the amount of practice that is going to go into any kind of completion. But worse than all of that, we have an oak short bow, and we have steel arrows. That's just, it's not going to do it. It's not going to cut the mustard. So passive feels the way to go here, but that's also not without making sure that we try and retry and honestly, to borrow from Crack once again, set a genuine number of attempts per chunk roll. Something like 3, I think, where a chunk has no gear improvements, and as many as 10 where we do see a gear improvement. So if we were to upgrade from an oak short bow to a yew short bow, that's going to trigger at least 10 shots. If we go from Dragon Spear to Rune Scimitar, I'd have to check to see if that's a genuine upgrade, but it could be. You never know. And so I suppose that takes us across to the skilling tasks. And the first of those, being 90 fletching, will yield a lot of woodcutting levels along the way. And the saving grace is that we at least have an adamant axe, access to willow trees, and a lot of time to AFK. And look, with a fletching mini game now, not too far away in Valamor, it's probably also prudent to stack up some of these items. So a lot of this grind, I imagine, will or should be dedicated to yew longbows. And I think setting the goal of probably 10,000 of those will take a long time, because the yew logs certainly take a lot longer to chop down, but would just put us in a really good position when we do get Tribal Totem minigame unlocked. And other than that, we're going to utilize the willow trees as best we can and essentially create as many arrow shafts as possible. Arrow shafts, and then turning those into headless arrows, create the best XP per log and the most, I suppose, easily AFKable journey. And along the way, we're going to get a lot of bird's nest. We're going to get some big, juicy ent balls. Big, juicy ent seeds. Not balls, although shout out Tetrascapes, who is collecting all balls in Gillinor. And with all this AFK, probably plenty enough lamps to really make a dent into 48 Slayer. I think, what else? 90 crafting is probably the other really big requirement, and it's also garbage content like charter ships, buy sand, buy ash, throw it in the furnace. We can be pretty efficient here, and we can fletch headless arrows while we're going there and back. We know we're not going to have enough run energy to just continuing to run back and forth, and we found a good way by utilizing total level worlds where they've not been sucked dry in terms of ability to buy 10 sand and 10 soda ash at a time. So it's going to be pretty boring with 0% chance of good content, but we'll get it done. The other two, prayer and range, we can kind of do those concurrently. Prayer will be a familiar foe, hill giants. We've killed about 25,000 of the beasts, so we'll still need a few more to get that 60 prayer unlocked. And from a ranging perspective, we'll range the hill giants unless we just really truly need to be AFK, in which case we're just gonna head down to the crabs and crab away, because that is just a guaranteed 10 minutes of don't have to touch the screen other than to maybe pick up some of the arrows that are falling neatly on the ground. We did, going back to crafting, did consider trying to get an easy clue scroll as a way to get through this, but we have one doable step. There's about 166 steps total at the moment in the game, and that's about 120 hours. Just not really worth the time investment there for a maybe opportunity. So we've spoken a lot about the skill tasks, but where are we as at today? Because it's been a couple of months since we got this role, and a month since we dropped a video. Well, today we are at 90 fletching. We got through the 10,000 yews, we got through the 1.4 million arrow shafts and completely drained our cash stack. But Dragon Arrow can be fletched once we have access to it. So that is a chunk task complete. We also managed to make our way through the monotony that is 90 crafting and finish it with some emerald amulets. So 90 crafting. If we luck our way into an onyx at some point in time, we will be able to make an onyx amulet as well. And one day we'll be able to enchant that, but that is a long way away. Prayer, well, as you can see with the giant, can't use the phrase gang something, but the group of giants surrounding us for a enjoyable session, well, we have killed many giants along the way. Finishing these off quick and dirty because we needed to kill 4 to get the 60 prayer milestone out of the way. There's our last giant. There's the big bones. Have a celebratory drink and knock out 60 prayer. That is another skilling task complete. 3 of 4, so there is 1 to go. And that is 75 range. And back where it began, in the West Fortis Bank, guard down, 75 range achieved. That's all of our skilling tasks completed. As we look to slowly make our way to the end of the video, there's still a lot to talk about. Now, Colosseum is for the most part going to end up being a long-term or a passive goal, and with the skilling tasks in the books, at some point in time, relatively soon, we are going to be seeing a chunk roll, and that's exciting. It's always exciting to roll a chunk, but there is an elephant in the room, and that is the upcoming impending release of the sailing skill. And I, as it right now, have no idea how I'm going to treat those chunks, and hopefully can just let that sit for a short amount of time before really sort of rolling and getting into the sailing piece. But first, Colosseum. Now, at the moment, I can pretty comfortably, takes about 30 to 45 minutes, get through Wave 4. I'm still very much restricted by the availability of air runes, but Wave 4 is pretty good, and I would like to think that if you can get Wave 4, you can get Wave 5. It just adds a ranger to the mix. You can get Wave 5, you can get Wave 6, and then Wave 7 is free. And that's pretty much where I got to. Maybe it's slightly beyond that on the alt. But what I'm trying to say is, we definitely, before we roll a chunk, we want to get the Dragon Plate Legs drop. It's a 1 in 70 at Wave 3, 1 in 70 at Wave 4, and I think 1 in 7 at Wave 5, or thereabouts. And so there's a good likelihood of being able to achieve that. And that is our sort of bare minimum gate to move forward. I'm torn about grinding out uniques to just complete Wave 4 for that 1 in 200 chance. And the reason I'm torn about it is it just feels disingenuous. There's 12 waves in total, and if we're just going to go to 4 each time purely to get that roll, it's a little tough. So I think we still make the uniques passive, and I certainly wouldn't say no to a spoon. And I also think that there needs to be, a big lofty goal that I need to achieve. Maybe it's a Wave 7 completion before we do this chunk roll as well. And we might talk a bit more about that in a future episode. But that's kind of where we're at with Colosseum. We're torn but not torn, and have goals ahead of us. The second part of how we finish up here is just a good little discussion about what's next. And I think, there's a decent chance that we get this next chunk roll going prior to the sailing skill coming online, in which case it's relatively straightforward. We roll, we do task. The differential will be that numbers 1 and 3 you see here, and we need sandbox mode to show this too, but 1 and 3 are what we need to complete Twilight Promise, and in completing the Twilight Promise quest, we unlock the Quetzal system. And once again, Crack, I have mentioned your name many times. You are the inspiration here, but once we have access to the Quetzal system, we are going to allow that as rollable. So, roughly speaking, that gives us the Quetzalcoatl Gorge, Nemus Retreat, Tal Teclan, and I think Alderan, or Alderon, whatever floats your boat. So that would give us some additional chunks and some completely new content, rather than just simply brute forcing our way north here through 4 and 10. And on top of that, and I think this, almost bleeds into the sailing piece, but so long as we have chunk number 1 here, Fortis Cothan, unlocked, once we've rolled 1 Quetzal accessible chunk, charters from Fortis Cothan or Sunset Coast, charters will be rollable. That means we have the opportunity to get to Port Sarim. It means we can get to Zaya, Cathaby, Ardoyne, and that's going to at least open up some new content, some different content, and potentially get us closer towards sailing. I mean, if we move a little further to the right, yeah, there's a few chunks needed to unlock sailing, but if we can get that way, that'd be pretty cool. That is more than enough ChunkyNadz for one day. Thank you, as always, for tuning in, listening to ramble after ramble, and hopefully enjoying some background viewing of some Colosseum successes and failures, and probably frustrations as a viewer watching to see me lazy flicking my way through the waves and through the manticores, which are probably the best mob that has been introduced to the game by Jagex with Valamor. It is such a good monster. Anyway, we will see you in episode 20 for a chunk roll, for hopefully some juicy rewards out of the Colosseum, and by the time you're watching episode 20, sailing will be out, and you'll be having plenty of sailing content to take in, and hopefully we'll have an idea of how we're going to treat it. Ciao for now.